Good morning. Welcome to Sunday worship from the First UU Society of Burlington, Vermont, on land which has served as a site of meeting and exchange among Indigenous peoples for thousands of years and is the home of the Western Abenaki people. I acknowledge that we are guests in this land and need to respect and help protect the lands within our use. Today is January 3rd, 2021. And I am Cheryl Herrick, a member of the Worship Associates team. Today's service was supported and created by a large group of people that includes Mary Williams in the front office, musicians Sam Whitesell and Lea Morris, Director of Faith Development, Erica Reef, Music Director, James Stewart, Video Editor, Michael Wright, and the flowers on display were put together by Peggy Derby. As a Unitarian Universalist faith community in the heart of what is now called Burlington, Vermont, we warmly welcome all people to the shared work of building beloved community and making meaning in our lives. We want to offer a special welcome to those who may be visiting for the first time, and also those who have been in virtual attendance these many months. Greetings to those coming in from across the country and even around the world to join in. Wherever you are, however newly you have joined us, please be welcome. It is good to gather together. In times past, this is about where we turn and greet our nearby neighbors. I miss that, and maybe you do too. Can I invite you to take just a moment, close your eyes, and picture the bright face of someone you're happy to see, who you might wave at or run over to for a quick word before the service continues. Now today, following the service, as on all Sundays, please feel free to join in the virtual coffee hour to visit with others, maybe even the person you just pictured, and to talk about what came alive for you in this time together. And if you'd like information about ways to be involved, about upcoming services, events, and opportunities, or anything else in the Society, please visit uusociety.org, the YouTube channel, or the Facebook page. Though we may not be able to gather in person in all the ways we may be accustomed to, there are still many ways to connect and to be involved.
We kindle this chalice flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. The call to worship this morning is from a piece that was written in 1979 by a man named Ken Unterner, who was the bishop in a Midwestern part of the United States, and he wrote it for an address that his cardinal was going to give at a remembrance ceremony for priests who had died. These words were never spoken by Archbishop Oscar Romero of El Salvador, who was assassinated while celebrating Mass in 1980, but somehow this has become associated with him and is known as the Romero Prayer. This is what we are about. We plant seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that produces far beyond our capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something, and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for God's grace to enter and do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future not our own. For the last few weeks in our services, we have been featuring the music of a remarkable musician, composer, and organizer named Lea Morris. Lea has developed a partnership with Soul Matters, which is the partnership of many hundreds of UU congregations around the country who gather materials and preach and talk about different themes in different months. Lea did a project last summer, in the summer of 2020, that she called the Carpe Diem Art Venture. This next piece is a song that Lea and some of the children in that camp put together and made into a song to share with you. And it's about the fact that they're tired of COVID-19 and they're tired of the problems of the world, and they're singing about change to come.
I'm tired of staying home, of missing my friends, tired of online school, tired of everything being closed, having to stay apart at the pool, tired of having nowhere to go except from where I'm from. I know this can't go on forever. I'm waiting for a change to come. I remember the last day right before the pandemic. It was a Wednesday, it was kind of hectic. They decided to shut down the whole school just for 2 weeks, but it's gone on and on and on. Tired of staying home, missing my friends, tired of online school, tired of everything being closed, having to stay apart at the pool, tired of having nowhere to go except for where I'm from. I know this can't go on forever. I'm waiting for a change to come. Tired of poverty and suffering, some not getting paid enough. Tired of some people thinking that color of skin puts them above. Tired of pollution in the land and sea, global warming is just plain dumb. I know this can't go on forever. I'm waiting for a change to come. Coming up through history, we're getting closer together. We've come such a long way, but we can still do better. We help each other and learn to care a little more every day. It goes on and on and on. Tired of poverty and suffering, some not getting paid enough. Tired of some people thinking that color of skin puts them above. Tired of pollution in the land and sea, global warming is just plain dumb. I know this can't go on forever. I'm waiting for a change to come. I'll be waiting for a change to come. Let's be the change to come.
Now, let us deepen together into a time of meditation. Let's begin our meditation by sharing the joys and sorrows of our community, and then we'll hold a brief time of silence. So now, let us take a deep breath together in spirit, breathing in the breath of life, breathing out the breath of peace, and come now into a place of holy listening. Let us hear these words of joy and sorrow for this day, Sunday, January 3rd, 2021. Joy to come into the new year, having been able to attend a Patti Smith concert in pajamas in my living room. Can you believe the godmother of punk rock is 74 years old and she still sounds great? and is offering messages of hope and strength to all. Quiet sorrow in reflecting the losses, great and small, that accompany us into 2021. May we all find comfort, meaning, and connection. May the joys and sorrows of each be the joys and sorrows of all, reminding us of our shared humanity. As we enter the silence, let us hold that which has been spoken and that which remains unspoken in our hearts. I'm not sure what you think of when you hear the words imposter syndrome, and I suppose I don't know for sure for myself either. But I did notice that as soon as I typed those words when I sat down to write this at my computer, the next thing I knew, I was in the basement looking for a souffle dish instead of writing. In 1984, Peggy McIntosh, who may be familiar to many as the framer of the White Privilege Backpack and for her important work in the space of racial equity, offered a talk called Feeling Like a Fraud at the Wellesley College Center for Women. In it, she said, I attended a conference on women's leadership in higher education. 17 women in a row spoke from the floor during a plenary session, and all 17 started their remarks with some kind of apology or disclaimer. The self-deprecating comments ranged from, I just wanted to say, to, I have just one point to make, to, I never really thought about this before, but I really don't know what I'm talking about. But here goes. Ironically enough, all of us had been funded to attend the conference because we supposedly knew something about women's leadership. Yet we seemed to share a feeling of illegitimacy when speaking in front of women like ourselves. Now, I don't know about you, but in my whole professional life, I have been told not to say things, like in McIntosh's example, to be bold, not soft, to claim your power and stand up as the authority you are. Use declarative sentences that end with periods and exclamation points, not question marks. But McIntosh goes on in her speech to say that this is an incomplete way of thinking. She invites her audience to consider instead what it is to be both comfortable in our power and knowledge and to admit that there are other ways of being. That an audience might have a differing perspective, including disagreeing with a speaker they're listening to. She goes on, I find I want to make the case for some of the apologies I heard as refusals to pretend, refusals to be a fraud, your refusals to carry through with the rhetorical conventions of public speaking or writing or performance in which one must pretend to be a strong man overcoming others, or a woman strongly identified with white males' functions and rules for power and success. Now, maybe it's just me, but this feels exciting as we walk through the portal of change into this new year. Who do we think we are? And on whose authority are we seeking to be here? What beautiful starting questions for a new year.
Our offerings in December have been really special. Now we're in January, but I'm going to tell you about the status of the two special collections we had in December. One for Socially Responsible Santa, which you've probably heard me talk about before. At this point, more than $5,500 has been collected from your gifts and will go directly to families in the community that need help with holidays and need help with every day. That is still open for another few days, so you can still make a contribution to Socially Responsible Santa. And you can also, even though Christmas Eve is now a week ago, you can still contribute if you want to the Christmas Eve collection, which is divided evenly between gifts to JUMP, the Joint Urban Ministry Project, and the congregation's discretionary fund. Both of those funds work to make sure that people who need help just with daily things can get it when they need it. Your gifts to both of those special funds are very much appreciated. And today's offering, now that we're in the new year, in the new month, we are sharing this offering with 350 Vermont, which organizes, educates, and supports people in Vermont who work together for climate justice. Your gift to the offering, your gift to any of the funds of this congregation make a difference in the world and are most gratefully received. With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, to care for one another and our community, seek truth, and act for justice. Congratulations, I think. If we're here participating in this worship service, then we have indeed survived 2020. It would be ridiculous to say that life has never been as hard as it was last year. I mean, think of the Crusades. People lived through the Crusades for hundreds of years. Would have been nice to develop a vaccine for that. Every year there are tsunamis and earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes and war and slavery and oppression and pandemics. COVID-19 is bad, but compared to the Black Death, the plague that happened in the 14th century and other times, this one is a piece of cake. Human beings, we're not always wise, we are not always lucky, but we are resilient. We're still here. So, we're still here, and we're starting out this new year with a daunting array of challenges. New Year's Eve did not, in fact, change anything. We still have a national mess of our political institutions and our public policies, and we have corruption at many levels. We also have existential threats of climate change. And at the same time, our personal resources, the sources of strength that we draw on, are depleted. Just one example I read about this week. There was a study done, I'm pretty sure by a mattress manufacturer, that asked questions about sleeping and concluded that collectively we Americans lost 30 billion hours of sleep in 2020. 30 billion hours of sleep. That, of course, is true because people have been staying up later and spending more time on social media and just not sleeping very well when they do go to bed. Fascinating detail was that half of the respondents to this survey said that they spent, in fact, more time in bed this year, but not necessarily sleeping. And a quarter of them said that they were getting less sleep because they were staying up at night because it was the only time that they had any time to themselves. Good grief. One resolution that we could all make, in addition to getting more exercise, is to take more naps. So what shall we do? What shall we strive to be in this new important year? New Year's resolutions are never easy and they're rarely successful, we know that. But the problems that we're living in the middle of are so massive and so complex, the stakes are so high, and of course the future does depend on us. So we need at least to ask the question, what shall we do? A few years ago, when I was getting ready for an early January New Year's sermon, I ran across a small piece on Imposter Syndrome. It was written by Seth Godin, who is a marketing guru who writes a daily blog that I like. But first, to be sure, we all know what this is. Wikipedia says that imposter syndrome describes individuals marked by an inability to internalize their accomplishments and a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. I definitely know about imposter syndrome. Perhaps you do too. In every job I have ever had, there have been days when I thought, I am just faking my way through this. It may look like I know what I'm doing, like I know what's going to happen next, but eventually they're going to find out that I'm making it up as I go along. Whoever they are. That feeling usually doesn't last very long, but it's happened often enough, not just in my profession, but in my personal life that, well, let's just say it helps me not get too cocky. Here's what Seth Godin said. You are not imagining that you're an imposter. It's likely that you are. Everyone who is doing important work is working on something that might not work. And it's extremely likely that they're also not the very best qualified person on the planet to be doing that work. How could it be any other way? The odds are slim that a pure meritocracy chose you and you alone to inhabit your spot on the ladder. You've been getting lucky breaks for a long time. Yes, you are an imposter. So am I. So is everyone else. Superman still lives on Krypton, and the rest of us are just doing our best. But isn't doing your best all you can do? Dropping the narrative of the imposter isn't arrogant. It's a useful way to get your work done without giving in to resistance. Time spent fretting about our status as imposters is time away from dancing with our fear, from leading, and from doing work that matters. So what would it look like to stop fretting about being not yet qualified in your life? What might happen if we were willing to dance with our fear? What does that even look like? Well, in part, I think it means beginning. Making some first movement off the starting line, even though you don't know where the route ahead of you will take you. It feels like embracing the truth that you are still learning, and you might not succeed. Which brings to mind a very famous quote, which is often attributed to Goethe. I had this quote written on a piece of paper that I carried with me everywhere in seminary. It was in my book bag. You perhaps have heard it. Concerning all acts of initiative, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, providence moves too. And it ends, whatever you do or dream you can do, do it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. In fact, Goethe did not write this. It was written by a man named W.H. Murray, who was a member of the Scottish Himalayan expedition of 1951. He was reflecting in this piece on the difference it makes when people make a commitment and take a first step to act on that commitment. Murray was part of a group of climbers who dreamed of climbing Mount Everest, which at that point had never yet been done by a Westerner. The act of commitment for the members of that Scottish Himalayan expedition was to have bought tickets. They booked their passage to Bombay. It was a small act, he says, but great in consequence. Until one is committed, he wrote, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. Providence with a capital P, that powerful divine force by whatever name. This is an intriguing idea. It's a faith conviction, really. Not necessarily belief in some divine partisan who is pulling strings. It's a faith, rather, in the idea that human initiative matters and that change is, in fact, possible. We don't have to have the route fully mapped out and all of our credentials in order before we begin. Our plans will not always work out. There are no guarantees. But still, what if our faith and hope and inspiration is a way not just of believing in ourselves, but of calling on other sources of strength? Perhaps angelic forces, or the arc of the universe that bends toward justice, or maybe people we know, or people we might soon meet who need us almost as much as we need them. Intention, hope, resolution. We need these not just to keep going, but to move in the direction of our heart and our spirit. This sounds good in the bright light of January, even in this difficult year. But where will we find the energy? I have to do this myself, right? My life is my responsibility. I had better get busy since nobody else is going to do it for me. True. But that doesn't mean I can't ask for help from my friends and from my faith community. We Unitarian Universalists tend to expect a great deal from our congregations, our churches or fellowships or society, by whatever name. We expect that they will serve the world, look beautiful, create programs, cherish children, that they will care about us when we get sick or old, that they will be generally interesting, effective, inclusive, democratic, responsive, on time, and on budget. even during a pandemic. A fine list as far as it goes, but we don't necessarily expect our congregations to help us become better people, which is kind of remarkable when you think about it, but then it's not necessarily part of our congregational culture to let on that we're not yet done. We're not yet perfect. We could acknowledge it, even out loud. We could claim our status as imposters. We could resolve to do something in this new year to move our aspirations and our realities just a little closer together. We could commit to expecting the congregation to help by being not just the good place that it already is, but the even more creative, welcoming, transformative, bold, and beautiful community it can be. What might that look like? Take a minute. Take a minute to consider and to figure out where you are in that picture. This is hard. These times are full of risks and disappointments and disillusionment and also exciting possibilities and imagination and dreams. This is hard and beautiful, and you are beautiful and a blessing to the world. Take very good care. Find joy today. Do something that helps you believe in yourself, something that helps other people too. Happy New Year. So may it be.
Though days be dark with storms and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. When sorrow heals my soul and burdens make me strong, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, my brother in my song, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is on, the destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, I know we will go on.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. So, let us begin. Go forth from this hour, this day, knowing you are good, knowing that you are loved. In the strength of your compassion and the power of your imagination, begin your life again today. We can do no more and no less. The world waits for our blessing.